Hi, welcome everybody. Today I have the pleasure of having Kate O'Brien here with me. Kate is a visionary and global voice for boldness and truth. Kate, welcome. I'm really happy to be here with you, and I'm happy to get into this conversation.
Thanks so much for having me, Shae.
You're welcome. Could you start, just maybe give us a little bit of background of your story and how you got to the work of where you are right now?
Yeah, absolutely. I think face down on the carpet and my floor, not able to stand up, was really part of the beginning. Hi everyone. My name's Kate. Obviously, I live in Bali at the moment with my husband and two kids, and life feels easy now, like easy, and that definitely wasn't the case when I was, sort of like about 5 lifetimes ago. It feels like. I had a drug addiction, I had anorexia, depression, bulimia, and social anxiety. And I even remember back then, even just speaking to someone, a stranger on the street, just was so intense and so like literally terrifying. And I remember thinking in my early 20s, when life was like that, like I just screwed it all up. Like there was literally no hope for me. I thought it was all down the toilet. And so to actually now be living in Bali and to be living the life that I do on a daily basis, where we've got, a team of, I've got 7 full-timers in my team, and we've just, on a daily basis, like really, I've designed my life that I'm working 100% in my zone of genius, and everything else is delegated. It's just has a very juicy quality. Now, please know that doesn't mean to say perfect. We'll probably be talking about that now, but like just it's juicy, and it's been intentionally designed like that, and I've had to show up for it. And I think really the only reason why I share like literally the whole breadth of that journey is because I just think it just shows what's possible for us. Like if you're listening to the summit, regardless of where you're at, there's just so much possible.
Yeah, beautifully said. And what you're talking about, face down on the carpet and all those things you listed that you've come from, out of, I mean, that's really perfect, because that's what I want to speak to. Those are the people that I want to reach in terms of wherever they are, to what degree that they're experiencing these kinds of restrictions, limitations, smallness, which really, goes back to the fear and the disconnection from self, our authentic self. So that's perfect. And then your story is one of ascension and rising to your fullness, more to your fullness and who you are, and a life that you're happy with. So that's really great. It's a perfect example. I think you're just, you're speaking right to what I want to address with this. And I mentioned this to you a moment ago, your hashtag permission to rise. When I saw that, it just really it like resonated with me, like, yes, because that's where we are. I think so much individually as a collective. I know my country, the US right now, is going through a lot of stuff where the darkness, our parts in our history, so on and so on, are coming to the surface to be reckoned with, and I see my nation as a nation that's having to grapple with some of this breakdown of what was and what no longer serves, and start on our own ascension path. And it's a little bit messy right now, but I don't think it's unique to us. I think a lot of people are going through this, and the world is feeling the effects too. And it's a shift in humanity right now. So I'd love for you to speak about that shift and how you see it, period, with the people you work with and in other areas as well.
Great conversation. Look, we're talking here about a shift from fear to love. And I'm going to share my experience and sort of where my stand is, and what I have and still on a daily basis find is the most useful thing for me, is that I'm not waiting until I feel like we have this idea or this fantasy illusion of how we're going to feel when we make that shift from fear to love. And we then hold on as that's the only thing we're holding out for. So the permission to rise is, I feel like it's both together.
Both meaning
loving also the fear.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. If I'm just waiting until I feel 100% ready, until I feel 100% like that little voice of doubt has gone away, I'm going to be waiting for the rest of my life.
Yep.
You know, and it just shocks me how many times, like a week, sometimes a day, I'll get contacted from people to say, how do I get rid of this feeling? How do I get rid of? And I'm like, well, it's literally like, it's a neural pathway in our body. We can't go in and cut it out. We're going to cut out our humanity and bypass that. You know, but instead of waiting until we just feel love, and if we're afraid, we can love that fear. And that is the part, that is the permission access point. It's like we can give ourselves permission to actually rise right now in all of our humanity. So what does that mean? That means, you know, before I get on a live, let's say, a Facebook, I just want to make this super my experience. So before I get on a live, I'm making a phone signal, whereas live is like this.
I get you.
So before I get on the live, you know, I have this little pattern thought. It's like literally just a pattern thought process that, Kate, you just don't have what it takes. Like, you don't have anything to share. I was told like a lot when I was a kid that don't think you're too smart. There's always people that are smarter than you. And look, I totally got the context of what I was, that was intended to be a driver for me to keep pushing higher. Cool, it has been a driver for me to keep pushing higher. But the fact is that when I get on something, I get on this little voice like, you know, Kate, you've got nothing to share. And so instead of waiting until that goes away, just like really getting that that's okay. That's okay. And I feel like, you know, I've been doing this work for 17 years, and I remember doing swish NLP processes for years on this little part of me. And yes, of course things have changed, but it's still there. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what I want to share with people. And that's why my work is about actually sharing a lot of my own humanity as well, because I actually want people to get in their cells, not just from a theoretical point of view and like a Facebook quote of course we all feel this, you know, but I want people to get on a cellular level that, oh, I too experienced that. There is no difference between you sitting there watching this interview and that person that you're looking up to and putting them on a pedestal. There's no difference. You just have different flavors of that same human experience. And when you look at them and you just see their greatness, and then you look at you and you're looking at yourself and you're magnifying your fears, then of course there's going to be this kind of this disconnected viewpoint. Mm-hmm. But like really getting that those people, even on a pedestal that you're putting on a pedestal, they have all their human experience behind the scenes, and you also have your greatness. There becomes a leveling where we can own the magnificence and give ourselves permission to rise as we are now and not waiting until.
Yes. What you just said there's a few really important things that struck me. And one was about the access point and about the love and the fear. Because when it's not just wanting or yearning or being in the love, that fear is the catalyst to more love. It's the grist for the mill. It's just as much part of our humanity as the love. I mean, as humans having this experience here, this is what propels us to grow more into who we are. It's the whole game. It's a setup as far as I see it. So, you know, that fear, it's like, to me, it's very valuable. It's not something we want to stay in, but it's to get on the other side, you've got to go through it. So to embrace it and to accept it and to respect it for the teacher that it is. Now, that might not be your first thought, but down the road, when you've gone through enough of those processes, you can see there's a fear. It's here to teach me something. And I think that needs to be really recognized, or would be helpful for people to recognize, not to run from that, but to really be in that and feel it, like you said, with every cell, because it's in every cell. You know, it is part of us. It's that intrinsic to who we are in this lifetime. You know, so it's actually this alchemistic process that if we embrace that fear and go into it, that's what's going to start to continue to expand ourselves. You know what I mean? So it's actually a very valuable point and not something to run from, as scary as it is.
Absolutely.
Whew, I'm just feeling this, like, I don't know, it's like so strongly tapping into what I'm talking about right now is just, I guess I'm feeling it. You know, there's a lot of, I don't feel fear, but I just feel this movement in my body. And when you talk about the cells, it's like things are activated. And that's the juice. That's that process. I think that if we can become more connected with ourselves and our feelings and all of our feelings, and this is our platform to rise from. This is what propels us. It's a fuel in a way. Does that make sense?
Oh, it makes total sense. It makes total sense. I feel like really just, and this is so simple, and this is going to be so unearth shattering and possibly even disappointing, because we want to hear something that's almost complicated that we haven't heard before. But the reality of it is, I just think we're just really afraid to feel stuff.
Yeah.
And, you know, whenever I look for myself, is what am I trying to avoid? There's just like certain feelings that I'm trying to avoid. Like when I just come down to it for myself. So, you know, what's my practice now, today, last week, last month, last year, is just constantly, and look, I just want to say, like, this is element of like really like, what is it that I'm creating and stepping into and all the rest of it. And like that fully there at the same time of fully being there with, what am I actually like avoiding? Like, what am I not wanting to be with? So there's a dance of both. And so for the purpose of this conversation, we're not going to be talking about this part, but know that that's absolutely there, because it's you know, it's the beautiful marriage of the two. But we're going to just be focusing on here on what is it that really I can't be with? What is it that I'm avoiding? What within me am I not willing for people to see, because it's like I've got it here and it just feels so small and so vulnerable that I put a little bit of a wall in front of it so that it feels safe. And look, have you noticed how, you know, I've seen people when they're perhaps like on social media, and there feels a very openness, and then when you meet them in real life, you can feel like when people are energetically distant. Right?
Yes.
And yeah, and when that's happening for someone, they're not even aware of it, but it's like kind of like there's been a bit of a wall or a bit of a layer built up around, and then out in the front of that wall is like the personality, the success, the positive, you know, and then behind that is like, I do not want this part of me to be seen. I don't want it to be touched, but I'm not even aware, because this wall has just been just there, right? And you can feel it like an energetic distance. And I would really just say that was how I was for years, and then progressively actually learning how to allow and have the courage to actually have the courage to have the wall come down, but then also how to have it come down. What I've found and it's progressional, and what I've found in recent times is that the more I actually feel into those moments that I'm like, there's something that I'm resisting, something that I want to hold back and keep away, because there's that fear feeling. It's like a feeling. And I think, what would it be like if I went there? Like, what is the thing I'm most avoiding here? And I go there and I just kind of hang out in that space and do whatever feels good, whether it's move or breathe or just be seen or say that thing that feels so scary. The wall comes down a bit more. So what that actually looked like recently, for example, was we were doing a big workshop where we had 60 people who had flown from all around the world to spend 5 days with us. And, you know, I'm the trainer at the front, which even in itself, you know, like that can have us put ourselves in a certain kind of perspective and a certain light. And I've got a hat on, and then with that comes a responsibility of what I'm supposed to be putting out, right?
Right.
So this was about 6 months ago, this workshop. And here I was into day 3, and I had my headset on, and I was up the front, and I was doing a training piece, and it felt quite pushed, and I really felt like there was just something going on underneath. And so that get it sorted Kate, get shit sorted Kate came out the front, and she was leading the show. I was not connected to anything apart from like almost surviving the experience. There was like a resonance of that. And just a smell a rat with myself. And so I thought, I've got to stop it here and get someone else to take over for me, and I will go away and just work through whatever's coming up. So I put everyone into an exercise. They were partner sharing, and then I went into the back room, and my husband, who we are a team together with this, I took my headset off and I just said, you got to take over for me, something's coming up for me. And he's like, yeah, I can see it. And I said, yeah, please take over, because he would be able to then take the session. And he said, no, this is now your opportunity, darling. And he walked out of the room.
Oh,
like,
oh no.
I was so upset because I wanted him to save me from this. And with love, he walked away from that.
Oh man, yes.
In that moment, I could have punched him in the face. I was so upset. But I totally got it as well. And so I just went and sat up the front, and my body was starting to reverberate. Like, I felt a bit nauseous. My cells felt like they were shaking,
Mm-hmm.
I felt very wobbly, like there was no grounding. And what was happening was that literally I could have continued with that front part of my personality, the one who used to get standing ovations, do an NLP type performance on the stage, but then kept my humanity at a distance. Does this make sense?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So it's like, what am I most committed to here? And it was a total letting go of control, because that controlled space is very familiar, but it's also very limiting. And so I sat up the front and I just said, sorry, please come back. And I just said what was happening. I said, look, I have no idea what's going on. I have no idea even what to do next. But I tell you what, I can't keep doing that. And I said, if you can, maybe, can we just be silent? And I just want to actually be seen, because I'm as scared as F. And for 5 minutes, they just looked at me, and I looked at them, and I just let that part of me come forward that was really scared. And that part of me sat there, and that part of me held eye contact with people. And it was scary, liberating. I was starting to shake a little bit, almost like a rejiggle of what was going on the inside. And I just started doing the snot cry. And it was amazing. It was really liberating. And I think the reason why I took so much time to share that is that I think it's these things that we're so afraid of that is the place we need to go to. So whether it's speaking your truth, whether it is really going to that place that you're afraid of.
I love that you shared that. It was well spoken. I was following you 100%, feeling it as you were speaking it, even not just from here, but from everything. And I understand what you mean about this persona and then this hanging back here, and how courageous and authentic of you to just go up there and be that part and let that part come forward. And I think that part coming forward, tell me if this resonates with you, but allowing that part to come forward and letting it be seen by all the people and just being in it. There's a part, I think, that just wants recognition and love. And that's what a lot of those fear parts are about, right? Because they were created as a way to hide and to be safe. And if they're exposed in a loving manner, then that in some way, I think, takes that illusion away, and it works that alchemy, right? And it heals ultimately. So what you just described was brilliant. I mean, it's a great example of how to be with that part.
Yeah, I think we have parts of ourselves that are pretty much under lock and key for whatever reason, where you have maybe through a traumatic experience or just through some kind of expectation that we took on, and then these parts of ourselves we went, shut, close, shut, close, shut, close, and then, okay, so this slither of me I will operate within, and then really feel like that is a full expression of me. Kind of like if you imagine living in a tiny 1-bedroom house, like small, and you're living in that house, 1-bedroom apartment, thinking that that's all there is, and you've lived your find this door that gets uncovered, and when you open up the door, go up the stairs, and at the top there's this penthouse suite. And you didn't even realize that was there the whole time. You actually owned it, you know. And then you're in the penthouse suite, and then you pull back these double doors, and you go out, and there's like an infinity pool that overlooks this amazing view, you know. And it's like, I feel like this process is when we allow those parts of ourselves to be seen, and also when we go and explore parts of ourselves that have, like, consciously, intentionally, have not yet been explored, whether that's our power or whether that's our sexuality or whatever it is that we close down because we deemed inappropriate for whatever reason. When we start to kind of open them up consciously and go to explore them, we just have more of us to show up with, and that's the point. It's like we go from living in a one-bedroom apartment to this zooming out 10,000 acre ranch with, you know, infinity pools and guest houses, and, you know, it's like, it's just unlocking the capacity of ourselves. And we can't unlock the capacity of ourselves through reading a book and through talking about it.
No.
It's only through showing up.
Yep. Showing up and experiencing it.
Yeah.
You know, and I think I just thought of something when you said that. It's a little bit of a dichotomy, but it's like the more we go through these processes, the more we become familiar. Yet at the same time, the way I see it, the fear, the core, as we get closer and closer to our core, like the genesis of the fear, it gets bigger. So in a way, we're more familiar and used to how to go through the process of dealing with the fear, yet it seems to be bigger and bigger and bigger, right? So it's just, I mean, that's almost paradoxical, but I also find that's a language of spirit, and how these when you get more into that, that's the kind of experiences you have. And so that just popped in my mind when you were talking about that, the infinity pool and the penthouse and all of that, which is a great analogy. And I just, so we've covered a little bit with that, but I also want to give your opinion, some practical ways that people can kind of be with this when they come up against the fear, because this is what we're facing, these veils and limitations of fears. We want to grow. We're gonna come across these roadblocks inevitably. So what are you seeing with your work that, you know, some of it we talked about with your great example of how you just were in it and you allowed it to come forward. What else would you say around that in terms of what people can do when they come up against these fear points?
Yeah, definitely. So much I want to say about this. Number one, first and foremost, I would say have a high context for why is really important, because doing this work, you really come smack up against the safety boundaries of your core identity. And with that also comes all the defense mechanisms and the resistance. And the defense mechanisms can just be quite sneaky, you know, lovingly sneaky, but the little stories they whisper us are very convincing and very realistic and relevant, and we can just totally think that's the truth, right? So, for example, yesterday I was talking to an amazing woman, and she talks about authenticity, but it's a very controlled authenticity. She pre-prepares authenticity for quite a while before she really allows it to be said. Does that make sense? Yes. And this is a really common experience of authenticity these days. Is like, it's what I'd call pre-rehearsed authenticity. So she was, and this is an example of how kind of just much we can convince ourselves that our reasons for not being seen are very valid. So from this space, she was going to write a book, and she had something that she really wanted to share, but she'd been putting off sharing this thing for 2 years because she was going to put it into a book and put it that way. And I said, well, what's stopping you from like just getting off this call and getting on a live and sharing it? Like, what actually stops you? And she said, oh, because it has to be packaged this way. Why? And I'm not saying she has to get on a live. I'm just saying to her to challenge those things that feel relevant, because to be honest, they are safety mechanisms.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. Yeah. Just for her
Yeah.
to have that understanding of like, what is it within me that's preventing me, and to look at that part of it.
Exactly. And the resonance of where she was at was that she was hiding behind this mask of authenticity. And there was a part of her that was shit scared of being seen. Right now, she didn't have to do the live. That was not the point of that conversation. And yeah, I mean, and so what I would say is have a context for why, and then like be really curious and playful with prodding in on yourself and asking yourself these kinds of questions. So that was the second thing. Third thing I would say is practice feeling.
Yeah.
And even though it's the third, I think these two are an access point to that, but the third is actually so important, is like really, I'm just going to turn that down, really like practicing feeling, like that's everything. So
yeah,
every time, and look, I've been doing this work for so long, and still, you know, the other night I was angry, and in the moment of anger, it took me a while to remember, oh yeah, I can feel angry, you know, because in the moment I'm just back into defense mechanism, and I'm like, grr, and then I'm like, oh, you know, how do I get rid of this anger? Well, how do I just actually be okay with the anger? Oh yeah, again, got it again. Thank you very much.
yeah, I get it. I know, been there.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, thanks for the lesson again. Yeah, so just being willing to actually feel. And then what I would say is consciously choose those areas of yourself that, and maybe just choose one at a time, that you've actually shut down. And ask yourself, first of all, what within me or what am I not okay to be with? What am I not okay or comfortable with? And, you know, write a list. I've written my list out, and then choose one at a time and spend a few months consciously playing in, I call it a conversational domain. So let's say, for example, for me, two big domains that are really uncomfortable and just unfamiliar and really shut down was the conversational domain of power and the conversational domain of sexuality. So, you know, I literally chose a domain at a time and consciously played inside of that domain by giving myself little tasks, little exercises, and practicing it when it didn't matter. So the conversational domain, for example, of power. So for me, I grew up the nice person. So in my family, when things were chaotic, being a nice person kept the peace. And it was really beneficial. But as an adult, if my only mode of operating is nice Kate can't always get the shit sorted when power is required. Right. You know, so for example, inside of that conversational domain of playing inside of my power, I put myself to little tasks like, for 2 weeks, when I'm out and about in the public, I'm not allowed to smile. Which, you know, like, who really cares? It doesn't matter. There's no significance in it. Like, so practice these muscles when it doesn't matter. And my intention for that was to kind of start to break the habit of doing robotic smiling at people, because I was just adding fabric softener to every conversation. And, you know, by about the end of the second week, after I got through the massive uncomfort and like had to like really get control of myself from wanting to smile every time, I started to feel a little bit more freedom with that. And so just those kinds of things, just tasking myself with little stuff. So practice the muscles always when it doesn't matter. So you're starting to build like a muscle memory that when it does matter, this memory can start to kick in, and you've got a foundation to actually work from. Yeah.
Absolutely. That makes perfect sense. And it's, and I was just envisioning or feeling when you were talking about being out on the street with no smile. I might even try that for a week myself, because I normally like to smile, and I'm a kind of gregarious person. But what if I didn't? You know, I'd be curious to know what would happen inside of me in those situations. Like noticing, does something come up? Is something relevant? You know, just like an experiment with myself. Just to see what that would be like, you know, and the building the muscle thing, absolutely, because you are reprogramming. I mean, the neural pathways are literally being reprogrammed, through these kinds of processes. We're changing so much about ourselves when we go in and are just like ripping up those old roots of that limitation and that lack and that restriction, however it was kind of planted within us, growing up. So, and that takes awareness too. And that, I think, awareness and like that discernment, knowing yourself better and better and better, so that when you're in that situation, you're quicker to recognize, you're able to like navigate that process within yourself. And this all comes with time, of course, as it gets better and easier for somebody to do. But I'm just sort of thinking it out as you're talking from that example. There's the practices, there's the awareness, and then the self-love, if you don't get it right, so to speak, none of that beating up and harming yourself because it doesn't work magically the first 10 times or whatever.
Absolutely, which is it almost brings us back to the conversation we talked about at the beginning, is that instead of waiting until you get it perfect that you can praise yourself and get started, it's like the whole journey of 6 breakthrough, breakdown. It's just really being able to love the whole process. And I've got to say, it's so much easier said than done. Like, it sounds really nice saying that here, but just having compassion for ourselves. And I think one of the biggest things that I want to say here is that almost takes us a little bit off topic, but if you don't mind.
Sure.
We do not see what goes on behind the scenes for people. Hen and I have had the absolute privilege of working with a lot of the big names in the industry, and Henari has spent a lot of time even traveling with these big names through Europe, spending time with them, and they are also showing one part of themselves. Sure, that part of themselves is an authentic part of themselves, but it's only one part of them, and they choose which parts they don't want to show. So it's really easy for us to look at them, and I say us, like to look at people and still put them up on a pedestal, even when we don't think that we are.
Right.
And think that they have got something magical sorted,
Mm-hmm.
And then in the moments of when because it's easy to talk about it now, but it's actually in those moments when you are really feeling like you're pushed up against your own stuff, that we can sometimes lose sight of this and think that other people actually aren't experiencing that. Well, they are in their own flavors. There's a really good book by, I think it's Jack Cornfield. It's called After the Ecstasy Comes the Laundry. Have you read that book at all?
I know, no, not that one. I'm familiar with some of the other books he's written.
Amazing. So After the Ecstasy Comes the Laundry, and it talks about these enlightened teachers who have these big enlightened experiences, and they are enlightened, and then after that, the laundry that actually came with that for even the enlightened teachers, So if you're not yet enlightened, cut yourself some slack. You're doing good.
And that's what 99% of us, right?
Exactly. I mean, we, as a human being, we just can't escape our humanity, and I think that's really the point. And that's probably the biggest point of everything that I want to share and want to stand for, is that it's like we can't escape our humanity, so we may as well choose it and love it, and then get on with the business that we're here to do anyway.
Absolutely. And I'm glad that you framed it in terms of humanity, because that is, it is everyone included, right? We're all a part of this humanity. We're all, as individuals, going through like the micro and the macro of the experience here. We're all interrelated and connected, experts, gurus way up there, down to whoever. There's no hierarchy in terms of these emotions and these processes we go through. It's a level playing field for all of us.
Absolutely. Look, I'm not going to mention names, and there is, like, for example, one of the most beloved spiritual teachers who's very soft, and people, through most of that spiritual workings, he was having affairs and had a bachelor pad in the background and having affairs on his wife, and no one knows that, So when I'm hammering this point, because people hear it on one level, but they're still not getting it. Like, really, everyone has their stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And And the reason why I hammer it is because I want people to get permission. It comes back to that same word.
Yep.
Like when we actually get this on a cellular level, we give ourselves permission to, one, be human, and two, at the same time, be extraordinary.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And to that point, what you were saying a moment ago about the that way of perceiving others being above us or better than somehow is such that trap that we get, that we are mired in within ourselves and our own self-thinking, in terms of, I could never be that, I could never do that, I'm separate from that somehow. Like there's this distance, this, I don't even know what to call it, distance, but it's a profound distance in terms of how we relate to ourselves, you know, by comparison.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that, let's call it a vicious cycle. That kind of vicious cycle goes also for the people who are on a pedestal. See, those people who have been put on a pedestal, if they have got to that pedestal and they now have a large audience and they've got there through just showing one part of their personality, that becomes a very limiting experience, because once they get there, they really then don't know how to share those other parts of themselves and let themselves be seen. And so, you know, this whole conversation about letting yourself be seen and being able to open up the different parts of yourself, you know, that becomes like a very intense experience for someone who's very much in the public eye and has got there through just showing one part. Because God forbid, if they show anything else, they've got a long way to fall.
Exactly.
And so when I said that about that man, that spiritual teacher, I also have a lot of compassion for what he would have been going through in the background around that. Mm-hmm. So, you know, for example, like Hinari and I, you know, we shared last week, 3 weeks ago, about the threesome that we had last year. And it was something that was actually a beautiful experience for us, and really consciously navigated before, during, and after. You know, we researched it for 7 months leading into it and went in with clear intention and just such clarity around what we were wanting to do, blah, blah, blah. And then we also were thinking, like, do we even want to share this? And we didn't have to. We, you know, totally didn't have to. And I'm not saying that you have to share everything, but also I really felt, and we both really felt, that if this was something also that we didn't share primarily because of how would people respond to it, what would it mean, you know, and that maybe I would feel very vulnerable because I can't then control what people think of me and their reactions of me. And I was like, I have to go there. I have to share it, because then we're just starting to build a platform based on that kind of agreement, and that's not okay for me.
And I want to commend you for having the courage to share that. I mean, that is so authentic and so real and so needed. And the permission, I think the currency that affords other people to step into their own, whatever it may be, if it's the same situation or any other situation, it doesn't matter. It's that same process. It's that same courage, that step, you know, to step out and to be real. So I think I remember reading your post on that and having that feeling like, you know, bravo, because talk about exposing yourself in a very intimate manner, like for what was going on, and just bringing it onto the world stage like that. So that's extremely admirable of you in terms of the authenticity and setting an example and giving people permission to do similar things, you know, the quality of the similar thing.
Thanks, Shae. I really appreciate that.
No, you're very welcome. Yeah, no, I mean, this is what we need. We need people stepping out in all of these ways, in their truth, in their authenticity. And back to what you said about the gentleman with the spiritual teacher and people like that in general, I can see that, you know, as this persona gets more and more crystallized and more value is perceived by that, you know, it becomes like, oh no, I must hold on to this image in order to X, Y, Z. And that is constriction in itself. Don't you feel that in your body?
Oh,
it's like,
yeah. Suffocating.
Yes.
Suffocating. It's like we were talking about the 1-bedroom apartment before. It's like an upgraded version of the 1-bedroom apartment, where we've still got other rooms shut off. We just have like an upgraded version of that.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. And then, but it's like we were here. It's like, cool, now we're here. And then, but there's still a prison.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like you can take the elevator up a story or two, so you're up, but you still got the parameter.
You're still on one floor.
Right, basically.
You just might be on the 3rd floor.
Exactly. You're still doing this.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow. Well, you know, I feel like I could talk to you for 3 days about this subject. There is just so much here. But we have a few more minutes. What would you like to wrap it up with? I mean, anything kind of just to bring it to a point that you want to leave people with?
Yeah, thank you. The only thing that's there for me is just please, I feel like I want to come forward to the camera when I say this. Please trust you. Like really trust yourself. Instead of looking out to other people and seeing them, like look into you and see you. And that is also including like really trusting deeply the massive combination of everything that's made you, even those parts of your history that you've rejected, that you thought should have been different, even those parts of your personality that you think just should be different, those parts of you that you're not owning, that you're not claiming, that you are rejecting, that you're trying to fix in order to be more, better, different, so that you can then like really rise into your power. No, screw that. Like really, if you're coming from that space, you will literally be waiting. The waiting will be the pattern. Yep. And you know, when I worked as a registered nurse, nursing people who are literally on their deathbed, that's what I heard over and over. All of the reasons why not, I now realize that that was just a pattern of basically avoiding my power.
Oof, I just got chills when you said that, because that is powerful. Really powerful. I mean, you had the unique position as a nurse to watch people at that stage in their life. I mean, that's really something.
And then hold their hand while they're dying, and literally their eyes are going fixed, and then having then heard the story of their life and heard their regrets and heard what was now important to them, and then their eyes go fixed, and I'm like, that flames out, you know.
Wow.
I have a picture on my desktop of myself that I paid to have myself turned into an 80-year-old. And so, you know, I was in makeup for 5 hours and had my face all wrinkled and I had my hair grayed. And I did that as a gift to myself. And then that photo's on my desktop to remind myself that I'm like, this is so temporary,
Yes.
you know?
Yes.
You know, I'm not going to waste time resisting and pretending this is going to be different, or pretending that this here was going to be different. You know, it's like, just have courage, permission.
I love it. Very powerful. Wow. I mean, that you did that. That's a great idea with the photograph and to see that, because I don't know, I can't put it into words right now, but I feel it, like what you're talking about, having that vision and that sense. There's so much to that shifts that perspective. It shifts this little, and I think gives permission too, because, you know, the people that you saw on their deathbeds and saw them die, I mean, what a more powerful thing to witness in terms of permission to live, but really live, having seen that.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
All I feel like saying at the end of that is amen.
That's right, amen. I concur. Yes. Well, I'm grateful for this conversation, and I really hope and do believe that it will spark something within the people who are listening, to live and to take a chance and to love, and all the things that we mentioned. I mean, this is life. This is being alive, I would say. You know, what we're talking about, the things that we're talking about stepping into or challenging ourselves with, or just embodying and embracing.
Mm.
That's being alive. It may not always be comfortable or clean or perfect, whatever that is, but you know, it's life. It's really living. And I think
Mm.
if you can do that on your deathbed, you know, you'll have that have had a much fuller life and have that just satisfaction.
Mm.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Wow, Kate. Well, our time is up, but I know that you've got a gift for people, and we'll have more information after the video that people can connect to and follow up with. And
Thank you.
yeah, I really appreciate you and the work you're doing.
Thank you so much, Shae. I really appreciate that. Do you want me to say the URL for my gift?
Absolutely, please do. Sorry, I
Yeah.
was so caught up.
No. That's all right. I love that. Yeah, so if you go to gamechangerfree.com, then the free gift is there. It's a two-part video training, and it teaches really sort of the underpinning distinctions of a lot of the work that I do. And then also you can find me on social media at Kate Marie O'Brien. That's Marie with 2 E's. And I just want to say, Shae, thank you so much. This is actually one of my most favorite conversations I've had in interviews. You've got a really beautiful way of interviewing. It's been a beautiful dialogue, and you ask great questions, so thank you.
Oh, thank you very much. I appreciate that feedback. I just think when I connect with this kind of, it's just so natural because it means so much to me, you know, and I can tell it does you too. So we couldn't go wrong.
Thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you everybody for joining us. Thank you, Kate, and we'll see you again soon. Hi. Oh, in the meeting. Okay.